Hi everyone. Today I'm working on a project based on a folding telephone holder I found on Thingiverse. It was designed by a user named Classic God back in 2015. It is a print in place design, meaning the hinges are printed directly into the model. However, because this model is nearly 10 years old, it presented a few challenges for modern use. First, it was simply too small for current smartphones, so I needed to scale it up by 30%. The second problem is more serious. It's a mechanical issue. The tolerances on the hinges are extremely loose. As you can see here, the model doesn't hold its shape. Gravity alone causes it to fall open. It creates a very loose, unstable feel. So my goal in this video is to fix this. First, I'm going to show you how to use the XY contour compensation setting in Orca Slicer to tighten up specific parts of the print. But since software settings can only do so much without seizing the hinges entirely, I also developed a hardware solution. I designed a custom sleeve in FreeCAD that encases the holder. This solves the issue of the loose hinges while creating a more complete, finished product. So if you want to see what I did, let's get started. All right, so now that we're in Orca Slicer, the first thing that we're going to do is import and scale the model. So let's bring the model in. And this is the model that's been downloaded from Thingiverse. And we're going to scale it up to 130% because it's too small for modern phones. So the way we do this is by clicking on the model and then going to the scale option here and changing it to 130%. Make sure that the uniform scale is checked because otherwise the model will be distorted. So we're going to hit enter and that will scale the entire model. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is apply the XY contour compensation, but we can't apply it to the entire model because if we applied it to the entire model as it is, it's going to distort the outer frame of this model. So this is a print in place and it's made up of three parts, right? There's the outer part, and then there's the inner part, and then there's the most inner part. And there are two hinges here, right? A hinge here and a hinge here. So we don't want to apply it to the entire model because that's going to basically distort the model and it's not going to work. So we want to target only the internal moving parts of the model. Basically, this part here and this part here. And so the way we're going to do this is by splitting the model into its parts. And we're going to do this by clicking on the model and then going to split two objects. And this will separate the single STL into its three component bodies. And we don't want to apply the XY compensation to the outer body. We just want to apply it to the two inner bodies. Okay, so the XY compensation function is in the quality tab. If we go down, we can find it right here, the XY contour compensation. There's also the XY hole compensation, but we're not going to deal with that today. We're just going to deal with the XY contour compensation. So the way we apply it is basically by clicking on the object that we want to apply it to. Now, how do we click on each separate object? Well, the way we do this is by going to this menu here, and instead of having global checked, we click on objects. And we can see now that this particular model is made up of three separate objects. And we can click on each object independently of the other. So this is the most inner part of the model. This is the middle part, and this is the outer part. So what we want to do is leave the outer frame alone. Now, we have to get to the XY contour compensation, and we do that by going to the quality tab here and moving down, and we can find the XY contour compensation there. So we want to leave this particular part of the model alone. We want to apply it to the second part and the third part. Okay, so now we click on the second part, and now for this kind of thing, you're going to have to basically experiment a little bit about what will work. You don't want to apply too much XY compensation. You don't want to apply too little. You want to find just the right amount. And I have to admit, that can be a little tricky sometimes. So for the outer part, the outer frame here, we're going to leave it alone. But the middle mechanism, which is where we are right now, we're going to apply, and I have to admit, I've already experimented with this a little bit, so I know the numbers. We're going to apply a number of 0.28. Okay, so very, very little. So with this particular function, a little goes a long way. Okay, so we're going to say okay to that. And then we're going to go to the third innermost part. And for that, we're going to apply 0.12. Okay, so 0.12. And that will fix the floppy phone holder into a better, more tight phone holder. So, we can see what it looks like. Let's slice the plate, and we can see that the joints, the different components, are close together. If we get rid of what we did, so let's just get rid of it and slice it again, we can see that the three different parts are much further apart, right? So the XY compensation just makes everything tighter. So let's reapply this. So here we need to put 0.28, and here we need to put 0.12, and we'll slice it again, and this should work. All right, so that's all you have to do. The only thing we have to do at this point is just print it and then see if it actually works. All right, so here's the print, fresh off the printer, and it looks pretty good, and it kind of works. What I did, it's a little better than before, but it's not 100%. As you can tell, it's still a little bit floppy. So this particular joint here is good. So if we pull it, it takes a bit of effort, and it will work, but we need to kind of force it open. So this hinge is fine, but we need to pry it loose, which is good because we don't want it overly loose. That was the problem before. So with this hinge, it works. It did make it much better, but this hinge here is not perfect. It's still a bit on the loose side. So as I was saying, it's very difficult to use the XY compensation with two hinges like this. It works really well. I mean, you probably will find other uses for it, but for this particular project, I need to come up with something else to prevent the hinges from just flopping around. Okay, so that it's still not working, but it's better than before, that's for sure. Okay, so since the print is still a little bit loose, we're going to use CAD to design something that will fix the problem. So the idea that I have is basically to design a sleeve to constrain the phone holder when it's not in use. Now, we couldn't apply the XY compensation to fix it 100% because you can't push the values in the XY compensation too much, because essentially what will happen is if you push it too much, with this particular print, it will cause the hinges to seize up and weld together. So I already experimented with the numbers, and those were the best numbers that I could apply to make the phone a little tighter, but it's still not perfect. So the solution that I have for that is to create a very basic sleeve for the phone holder. So with the sleeve, that floppiness will go away completely. And the idea that I have is to use the already existing ridge on the phone, the ridge that is meant to hold the phone, as a mechanical latch, which you could use to pull the device out of the sleeve. So the first thing that we'll need to do is take some measurements. Once we take the measurements, we'll be ready to come back into FreeCAD, which is what you see behind me, and start basically designing the sleeve. Now, let me just say, this is a very, very simple project. If you are a beginner in FreeCAD, this is like the kind of stuff that you should be trying to do, because it's easy and it will give you a sense of what FreeCAD is about. All right, so for this design, I basically need two numbers. And I'm going to use my trusty digital calipers here to get those two numbers. We'll turn it on, make sure it's at 0. And here is the print that we just made. And essentially what we need is the width of the print and the height. But we're only going to take the height up to the beginning of the ridge here, because the sleeve will only go up to the ridge. And we're going to use the ridge as a way of pulling out the phone holder from the sleeve. So very simple design, but I think that it's probably going to make it look better, and it's going to work better, and it's not going to flop. That's the most important thing that we're trying to avoid. So let's begin by just taking the width of the phone holder. We'll just pull this out, and then we will just take the measurement. Okay, we'll put this here, and we will measure the width. Okay, so the width is 70.34. Let's just make sure that it's correct. It says 7.18. Okay, so 7.18 seems to be the correct number. So let's just put that down. So width 7.18. 70.18. 70.18. And then the height is going to be, let's see here. All right. The height is going to be a little difficult to do this while recording, but we'll manage. Okay, so the height is 98.37. So 98.37. Let's just make absolutely sure that it's correct. I'm going to 0 this, and we'll open this, and we'll measure again. And what we have is 98.34. Okay, so I'm just going to say 34, 35. It's close enough. So 98.35, let's say, for the height. So 98.35. So two numbers, width and height. And now we're going to go to FreeCAD, and we're going to do the design. Okay, so here we are back in FreeCAD, and this is FreeCAD 1. It's the latest release. And we're going to start by just creating a new project. And we'll create a body, and we'll create a sketch. And for this particular sketch, we can either put it on the YZ plane or the XY plane. It doesn't really matter. Typically, it's probably best to just put it on the XY plane. So let's just pick that. And now we can start drawing. So as I said, this is a really easy design. It's not going to take much. We're going to start by taking our tool here, the rectangle tool, and we're going to make a rectangle with certain dimensions, the dimensions that we just measured of the phone holder. So let's just make the rectangle. And for the height, we're going to make it 98.35. So 98.35, 98.35. And then for the width, we're going to make it 70.18. Now, we want to make sure that the phone holder will actually fit. So we need to make it just a little bigger than the measurements that we took. So I have found that 0.1 on either side works perfectly. So instead of 70.18, we're going to make the width 70.2. So let's just make 70.2. And now we have the shape that we want. Now we need to constrain the design, and we're going to constrain the design to the center point here. So it's very easy. We click on one point in one corner, the other point in the other corner. We click the center point, and we go to the constrain symmetric option. Click on that, and now we have a fully constrained sketch. Easy. All right, so at this point, what we need to do is close the sketch, and we are going to extrude the sketch. But it just occurred to me that I forgot to measure the depth of the object, and we need to know that before we can extrude the sketch. So I'm going to use my trusty calipers again, and I'm going to measure the depth of the object, and it is exactly 6.70. So 6.70 millimeters. So given that we need to be able to fit the folding the phone holder in there, I'll make the depth just a little more than 6.70. I'll make it exactly 7, and I think that will probably work. So let's just go to the extrude option, and that's this here, and we're going to make it 7 millimeters. So let's just put in 7 here and say okay. Okay, so now we have the basic sleeve. However, it's not done yet because we actually have to make a hole in here that will allow us to slide the phone holder into that hole. And how do we do that? There are a couple of ways to do that. For this particular tutorial, I'm going to use the simplest way, and that is by using the misnamed thickness tool. All right, so how do we do that? We basically click on one side of the object. So let's say the top here, okay, which is where we want to make the hole. And we will right there. And then what we're going to do is go to thickness, which is right here, this tool here. And as you can see, it makes a lovely hole. And we are going to keep it at 1 millimeter. So we don't have to do anything other than say, okay. And we have our little sleeve that we're going to be using for our phone holder. All right, and that's the whole model. It's basically ready to be printed out. Let's just center it here. And if you do make a model like this, don't forget to name all the parts. So let's just name the sketch. We'll call this phone holder sleeve, or just sleeve. And then we'll call it pad sleeve. And thickness sleeve. So this is a very, very simple design. Believe me, if your design gets much more complicated than this, you'll have to name every part, because otherwise you'll get completely confused. So at this point, the design is ready to go. I'm going to print it out, and then we're going to come back and see if it fits our phone holder here. And we'll see how well it does what it's supposed to do. All right, so let's get it printed out. All right, so here is the sleeve right off the printer. And, you know, it looks really nice. But the big thing is, does it work? So let's take our phone holder and we will slide it into the sleeve. And hopefully it'll slide easily. It takes a bit of effort, but I think it just needs to get loosened up a little bit. And it looks very nice. Look at that. And most importantly, it doesn't flop around, right? So it's perfect. Now, we need to be able to get it out, and it does come out rather easily. We can't have it too loose. You don't want it too loose because then it'll slide out of the sleeve. But it's working quite well. We can get it out pretty easily. And as we use it more and more, it's going to loosen up even more. So you don't want to make it too loose. But here you go. We have a very nice looking object that I think works a lot better than the original. Here's the original. And, you know, it's not only does it work better, I think it's more aesthetically pleasing. And, you know, I really like the fact that we're using the design of the actual phone holder to enhance the use of the sleeve, because we can use it to grab the phone holder, take it out, put it in place, and there we go. It looks very good. Well, there you go, like that. So if you found this workflow helpful and want to see more videos on slicer tips and computer-aided design, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps support the work I do here. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon for another video. Bye for now.